SHPO staff, is there anything, are you ready to go? Dads, yeah. Okay. All right. So everybody here can hear me okay? Great. Thank you. All right. Good evening and welcome to this meeting of the State Historic Preservation Review Board for the National Register of Historic Places. The date is November 12th, 2024. My name is Lindsay Rulon Miller. I'm currently the chair of the Minnesota State Historic Preservation Review Board. Our purpose this evening is to consider the nomination of properties to the National Register of Historic Places. As most of you know, the National Register of Historic Places is a federal list of those places deemed worthy of preservation. A nomination form has been completed for the properties that will be considered tonight. The nomination form has been sent to the review board members, and each member has had an opportunity to study it prior to this meeting. The owners of the nominated properties, local officials, and interested local groups have been notified of this meeting. All have been invited to send written comments about the nomination and to attend this meeting. Some of you may wish to speak this evening about the properties. You are welcome to do so, and I encourage you to address yourself to the question of whether that property meets the criteria established by the National Register of Historic Places. These criteria are the standards by which the review board will evaluate the nomination. This evaluation is the board's only assignment. These criteria have been established by federal regulation. Copies of the criteria have been sent to owners of the nominated properties and to the other parties I mentioned earlier. A description of the National Register of Historic Places program has also been sent to them. The nominations will be presented by a staff member. Persons viewing the meeting remotely will be then given an opportunity to comment. These comments should be limited to 3 minutes. The Minnesota State Historic Preservation Review Board will then discuss the nominations and a vote by the board will follow. Should a nomination be determined this evening to meet the criteria for inclusion in the National Register of Historic Places, the nomination will be forwarded by the Deputy State Historic Preservation Officer, Amy Spong. Should she agree that the property meets the criteria and that the nomination is in proper form, she will sign the nomination and forward it to the National Register of Historic Places office in Washington, D.C., where it will be reviewed once more. The process is a lengthy one, but it is calculated to subject each property to rigorous evaluation. Board members, if you plan to recuse yourself from a particular agenda item this evening, please make that known during roll call. When that item is introduced, please turn off your camera and microphone. When the discussion and vote has concluded, I will ask you to rejoin the meeting. So before we take roll call, I would like to welcome our newest member of the State Historic Preservation Review Board, Michelle Terrell. Michelle, you can feel free to correct me. Terrell?
Terrell, it rhymes with Carol.
Oh, right out the gate. Okay, Terrell, thank you.
That's okay.
So board member Terrell is filling the historical archaeologist seat on the board. And Michelle, in the roll call, please feel free to share a little bit about yourself when I call your name. Thank you. And welcome. All right, so as I take attendance, please introduce yourselves, briefly stating the role you fill on the review board and your particular expertise. So we will start with board member Anderson. I think she was out tonight.
She's absent tonight.
Okay. Board member Gladhill.
I'm Bethany Gladhill. I'm a member at large, and I'm a historic preservation consultant with expertise in architectural history and preservation, general preservation. Great to see you all.
Thank you. Board member James. Oh, we can't hear you. Or at least I can't. Try again. I can see that you unmuted, but then when you spoke, I couldn't hear anything.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Hello, I am Elliot James. I am Associate Professor of History at University of Minnesota Morris, and I'm one of the historians on the board.
Thank you. Board Member Lavasser.
Hi, I'm Andrea Lavasser, and I am retired from the Chippewa National Forest, where I was the forest archaeologist and um, property manager for about 18 years. Like I said, I am the prehistoric archaeologist on the board.
Thank you. Board Member Olson.
Hi, my name's Steve Olson. I'm a practicing civil engineer and I'm a member at large on the board. And a hearty welcome, Michelle. It's good to see you.
Yeah. Board Member Radford.
Hi, I'm Casey Radford. I fill one of the historic architect positions on the board, and I am an architect at a historic preservation firm in the Twin Cities.
Thank you. Board Member Sanders.
Hi, I'm Tom Sanders, and I'm an archaeologist and also an historic tradesman.
Thank you. Board Member Schulke.
Hi, Chris Schilke. I'm a member at large. I'm the director of the Otter Tail County Historical Society and one of the local historians on the board.
Thank you. Board Member Solomonson.
Hello, I'm Kate Solomonson. I'm an architectural historian, and until my retirement very recently, I taught at the University of Minnesota School of Architecture for over 30 years.
Congratulations on your retirement. All right, Board Member Stark.
Hi, I'm John Stark. I'm a historic architect on the board, and everybody else, I am recently retired. So sorry, I consult a bit.
Thank you. So Board Member Stark, I heard you. I caught what you said, but it was very choppy. So I don't know. It looks like maybe it was the internet connection. We'll see if it gets better. Okay, so welcome, Board Member. Oh, Board Member Terrell.
Hello, everyone. I'm a contract archaeologist and historian. I've been working in Minnesota for about 25 years, and we formed Two Pines Resource Group 20 years ago now, and that's the firm that I own and operate. And I'm pleased to join the board as the historical archaeologist, and I look forward to serving together.
Thank you. Board Member White. Frank, where'd you go?
I think he's muted.
Okay, well, I don't see
There we go.
Let's go.
Now,
Yeah, we're just
okay. All right, here we go.
here.
My name is Frank White. I'm an at-large member, and I'm a historian.
Oh, you can see.
Right.
It's going down. Yeah.
So he just has to get his cord.
Lily, can we mute the? Yeah. Thank you. And then Board Member Worcester.
Hi, Mike Worcester. I'm the Executive Director of the Morrison County Historical Society in Little Falls, and I am one of the historians on the board.
Thank you. And finally, I am Board Member Rulon Miller, formerly Board Member Dyer, just got married, new last name, still getting used to it. Okay. So I am filling member at large, and I work at the Minnesota Historical Society and Capital and Public Art. All right, thank you, everybody. Okay, thanks. All right, let me get back to our script. So at this point, I would like to pass it on to the SHPO staff, Deputy Director Amy, to give some announcements. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Chair Rulon Miller. I'm going to say that a couple times so it starts to float off my tongue easier.
Well, good evening, everyone. I am Amy Spong. I'm the Deputy State Historic Preservation Officer here in Minnesota. Want to welcome our board members, our preservation consultants, nomination authors, and members of the public that are participating this evening. It's really great to see everyone. Couple of housekeeping items and announcements. This meeting follows the state of Minnesota's open meeting requirements as a virtual meeting under Minnesota Statute 13D. No one is in person at a physical location this evening, and no board members are gathered in the same room, and the meeting is being recorded. At the start of the meeting, well, we've just had our roll call with the board to establish that we have a quorum. We do ask board members to have your microphones muted when you are not speaking and to have your cameras on when you are speaking, unless there's maybe some connection issues. That does happen periodically. We want to make sure that everyone participating this evening can hear one another and that members of the public can all hear the board discussion and all of the verbal responses. All votes will be taken this evening by a verbal roll call. And everyone here, I'm assuming, has already found the meeting link. You're here, that's great. But for the record, the meeting announcement and related information are available on the State Review Board webpage in the SHPO website. SHPO staff and Chair Rulon Miller will also be watching the chat function. You can either use the hand icon to raise your hand when it comes time for the public speaking portion, or you can use the chat function if you would like to speak, if you're a member of the public and you'd like to speak on a specific nomination this evening. So a couple announcements. I'm really pleased to be able to announce that since our last meeting in August, we have several new National Register listings that the National Park Service, or the keeper of the register, has authorized. The first two are the Shakopee Mounds, the Pond Mound site, and the Shakopee Mounds Steel Mound site. I think that was maybe back in the May meeting. Yes, okay, thank you, Lillian. And the Tifereth B'nai Jacob Synagogue, First Church of God in Christ in Minneapolis was listed. That was part of our August meeting, as well as the Roseau Memorial Arena, the hockey arena. And the last two were part of our August meeting. Finally, I just want to reiterate what Chair Rulon Miller said and welcome our newest board member, Michelle Terrell. We're really happy to have you on this board and sharing your expertise and your knowledge of Minnesota history and archaeology with all of us. And then I just want to introduce all the SHPO staff that are here. We're here, might not all be on camera. So we have our National Register Program Coordinator and Architectural Historian, Ginny Way, who's going to be presenting both of the nominations this evening and worked on those with the nomination author. We have our National Register Archaeologist, David Mather. John Disher is our communications person. He's working his WebEx magic behind the scenes and following the chat and helping with any maybe technical difficulties if that does happen this evening. And we have Lillian Egner is keeping us all on track. She's keeping minutes. She also organized all the materials in preparation for the meeting, and will do the follow-up work that's required with the Park Service and filing the nominations and paperwork. So thanks everyone for being here. And finally, do SHPO staff have any announcements that they would like to add or that I might have missed? Okay, hearing nothing, I think we're ready to move to the next item on the minutes, for the minutes from the August meeting.
Thank you, Amy. All right, the next agenda item is to review the minutes from the August 6, 2024 meeting. Are there any corrections to the distributed minutes? Okay, I don't see any hands or chats. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So
Board
moved.
Member Schulte, so moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Board Member Worcester seconds.
Board Member Worcester, second. Thank you. We will now vote to approve the minutes by roll call. Start by last names. Board Member Gladhill.
Aye.
Board Member James.
Aye.
Board Member Lavasser.
Aye.
Board Member Olson.
Aye.
Board Member Radford.
Aye.
Board Member Sanders.
Aye.
Board Member Schulke.
Aye.
Board Member Solomonson.
Aye.
Board Member Stark.
Aye.
Passing on Board Member Terrell since they weren't there the last time. And Board Member White. Yeah, yes. Okay, I think that way it was a yes. Okay, thumbs up. Okay, Board Member Worcester.
Aye.
All right, thank you. The minutes have been approved. All right, so now we move on to the presentation of the nominations with some instruction. For our nominations this evening, we are going to use the following format. There will be a staff presentation of the nominations, followed by a summary of correspondence received. At that point, I will then invite and call on those who would like to speak about the specific property. We ask that you use the chat function, or if you are unable to access the chat, raise your hand to indicate that you wish to speak. Please do not use the chat function for any other purpose. For those wishing to speak, we ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes. You just changed. Is everybody still there? Maybe that was just my computer. All right. So our first nomination this evening is the Hendrick and I got an excuse to just say Mari Oscom House. Hendrick and Mari Oscom House in Hennepin County, presented by Ginny Way.
Thank
So
you, Chair.
Ginny, I hand it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Ruan Miller. I'm also going to have to try that a couple of times out loud. It sounds great in my head if it makes any consolation. All right, I am going to share my screen and we'll be off. All right, this is the nomination of the Hendrick and Mari Oscom House in Edina, Hennepin County. Authors are Rolf T. Anderson and Jane King Hession. The Hendrick and Mari Oscom House is located at 6901 Dakota Trail in Edina, a first-ring suburb west of Minneapolis. The Oscom House is sited on a particularly steep parcel of land, with the house oriented to the southeast in response to the shoreline of the nearby lake. The design of the house responds to the steep terrain of the site and encompasses the two-level house, a breezeway, and a garage, all covered by a single butterfly roof. At left here is an aerial view of the Oscom parcel. At right is a survey map depicting the steep terrain of the lakeside site and the position of the house, garage, and driveway. Please note I reoriented this plan so that north is roughly depicted at the top of the slide. Elizabeth Liesel Schuh-Close was born in Vienna, Austria in 1912. Liesel began her architectural education in Vienna in 1930, but found the faculty to be hostile toward women. Edward Fellini, who was a family friend, suggested she continue her studies at MIT. In 1932, he arranged for her safe passage to the United States and provided financial assistance. She thrived at MIT and by 1935 had earned both her undergraduate and graduate degrees in architecture. She was the only woman in her graduate school class. On left is the main level floor plan of the Oscom House. At right is the lower level floor plan, and at center is a photograph of Liesel Close circa 1956. Liesel moved to Minneapolis to join Wynne Close, an MIT graduate school classmate, as a designer at Magny and Tussler in 1936. In 1938, Liesel and Wynne left to establish Close and Schuh, the first architectural practice in Minnesota dedicated to modern design. They married later that year. In 1940, the firm was renamed Elizabeth and Winston Close Architects, and in 1969, it became Close Architects. Wynne and Liesel collaborated on the firm's early projects. However, after a brief closure during World War II, Wynne took a full-time position at the University of Minnesota. Between 1946 and 1971, Liesel ran the firm and was its lead architectural designer. At left is the house's southeast elevation, camera facing northeast. At right is a view of the house and lake beyond, camera facing east. Liesel was involved in all steps of the construction process, including assisting the Oskams with the site selection. It's believed the lot was purchased at a cost of $8,500. A survey of the property was completed in October of 1962. To begin the design process, the Oskams completed a detailed 8-page program questionnaire about their needs and lifestyle. Developed by Liesel, the questionnaire was organized into 8 topics, and each topic was further broken down into subtopics. The questionnaire allowed Liesel the opportunity to better understand her client's needs so she could determine the optimal number, layout, and size of rooms, as well as specific furnishings required. On the left are the southwest and southeast elevations, camera facing north. At center is the southwest elevation, camera facing northwest. And on the right is the northeast elevation, camera facing southeast. The preliminary drawings were completed by November of 1962, with the final drawings done by March of 1963. The Oskams moved into their house upon its completion in early 1964. Liesel assisted with the selection of the interior furnishings as well as the design. At left is the breezeway with the garage and built-in doghouse at the right, and the house at the left of the image, camera facing southwest. At right are the northwest and southwest elevations. That's not physically possible. I don't know which one of those is east. Of the garage, camera facing east. Liesel continued to provide design services to the Oskams over the next several years. Architectural plans dated 1965 were furnished for the storage cabinet in the study, as well as a custom mailbox. Plans dated 1966 for the vanity in the primary bedroom. The most significant addition to the house following its initial construction was the replacement of the sliding glass doors on both the main and lower level. The Anderson Corporation, which had provided all the original windows and sliding glass doors for the house, had developed a larger 8-foot sliding glass door by 1965. They offered to replace the existing doors with their latest model at no cost if the Oskams would agree to allow their house to be featured in a national advertising campaign for their new product. At left is the main entrance door, camera facing southeast. At right is a view of the interior from the entrance, showing the sliding glass doors at center, camera facing south. Over the course of her career, many close designed buildings were nationally published in architectural and general interest magazines, including Architecture Forum, Architectural Record, Progressive Architecture, House and Home, and Good Housekeeping. As a rare woman in the field of architecture, Liesel herself was often the subject of the press coverage. In 1948, she was one of only 10 women architects whose work was featured in Architectural Record. At left is a view of the study from the living room across the atrium. Note the skylight, camera facing northeast. At right is the atrium from the lower level, camera facing northwest. The Oskam House represents many tenets of the modern style, such as its plainier surface, expanses of windows, and lack of ornamentation. It is considered an excellent example of Liesel's residential work. At left is the living room, camera facing west. At right is the dining room, camera facing northwest. In addition to being recognized both locally and nationally for her outstanding residential designs, Liesel was the first woman from Minnesota elected to the College of Fellows of the American Institute of Architects, or the AIA. She was the first woman to serve as president of what is now AIA Minnesota, and the first woman to receive AIA Minnesota's Gold Medal, the highest honor the organization bestows. The University of Minnesota awarded her its highest honor, a Doctor of Humane Letters, for her, quote, contributions to modern architecture in America, end quote. At left is the dining room with entrance to the kitchen, camera facing southwest. At right is a view of the light balances and windows between the beams, camera facing southeast. In order to qualify for the National Register as a work of a master, a nominated property must be, quote, assessed in relation to the expert's overall portfolio of work, and it must be a significant example of their work, end quote. The Oscom House represents an exemplary example of Liesel's work, and one which embodies many of the most important characteristics of her designs, including sensitivity to the site, practical use of exterior materials, particular attention to interior spatial planning and the needs of the client, as well as engagement with the outdoors. At left is a view of Indian Head Lake from the primary bedroom, camera facing east. At right is the vanity in the primary bedroom, camera facing northwest. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, Liesel Close herself confirmed that the Oscom House was an important design within her body of work. She continued to bring architects and potential clients to visit the house, and over the decades, she repeatedly selected photos of the Oscom House to appear in publications about her work. Far from the largest or most elaborate of her houses, she believed the Oscom House was an outstanding representation of her skill as an architect and an important example of the type of home she could provide for her clients. At left is the Minneapolis Tribune article featuring the Oscom House October 4th of 1964. At center is an AIA Journal article with a photo of the house September 1969. And at right is a St. Paul Dispatch article April 13th, 1983. The period of significance for this property is 1964 to 1966. The level of significance is state. The National Register criterion is C. And the area of significance is architecture. The period of significance begins in 1964 when construction was essentially completed and the Oscoms moved into their house. It ends in 1966 when the final architectural features were added. The Oscom House exhibits characteristics of the modern movement and, more significantly, the house represents an exemplary example of the work of Liesel Close, and one which embodies many of the most important characteristics of her designs. For these reasons, the Hendrick and Mari Oscom House is eligible for listing in the National Register of Historic Places. There is no correspondence related to this nomination.
Thank you, Jenny.
You're welcome.
All right, I believe we have some speakers on behalf of this house. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. I'm Rolf Anderson with Jane Hession, and most importantly, here is Mari Oscom, who would like to say a few words about the house.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I want to thank you for the honor of considering this nomination, and especially for the architect who designed it, and the house itself. And I must say, I have lived in it for 60 years and loved the house from beginning to end. And I hope to end my life here. Well, you have probably read our background, how we came here, my husband and I, and after a few, since he was a physicist, America wanted scientists after Russia put up Sputnik, and America recognized it didn't have enough scientists. So my husband was one of the people, of the scientists, was invited to come here, and we ended up in Minnesota and lived for rented an art and craft bungalow for a few years, and then decided, yes, we wanted to stay here and have our own house. And through friends, we got connected with Liesel Close, and from there on begins the story of the house.
Thank you.
Okay.
Rolf, anything you'd like to add?
Well, I think, I hope Mari doesn't mind me mentioning this, but I think he would be very interested. Not only is Mari here in her, the original owner here in the house, but Mari is 99 years old. And she is nonetheless focusing on the preservation of this house, which I think is really remarkable. I think you no doubt could see from the nomination that even homes from this era are in danger. In fact, there's a house right across the lake by Liesl Close that has been demolished, as long as a second house in Edina. So I think it's exemplary that Mari is so interested in the preservation of this house. And it's notable that this is the first property by Winston or Liesl Close ever nominated to the National Register of Historic Places. So that, I think, is a milestone in its own right that Mari and Jane and I are particularly proud of. And we hope in some ways this sets the stage for recognizing more properties by Liesl Close. They surely deserve it. And we're happy to talk to staff about finding strategies for recognizing more of these properties. But Jane and I very much enjoyed working on this nomination, and it's an unusual experience to be sitting in the property being nominated tonight, but we're all very pleased to be here.
And I just want to commend Mari for being such a superlative steward of this house for 60 years, and her dedication to being sure that it outlives her and it will serve another generation, and the lessons of the house can be enjoyed by others.
Thank you.
Chair Rulon Miller, can I insert just one thing before the board moves on to their discussion? I apologize. Lillian brought to my attention that we have received a piece of correspondence on this. It came in August of 2024 from the Historic Preservation Commission of Edina supporting the nomination. I apologize that I missed that because I was out that week.
Thank you. Any other members of the public who are here and would like to speak? Oh. All right. So I would like to now close the public comment portion of this nomination. And in order for us to discuss this this nomination, I would like to request a motion from the board. I see John, Board Member Stark.
Yeah, Board Member Stark, I would like to make a motion to recommend the Deputy State Historic Preservation Officer approves the nomination of the Ostrom House for listing on the National Register of Historic Places.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Board Member White, and I would second.
Board Member White, second. Thank you. Opening it up for discussion. Yes, Board Member Stark. Oh, you're on mute.
My computer's a little slow in responding today. Thank you, Jane and Rolf, for the well done nomination and all the information on that. It was really wonderful, and it's an honor to be able to look at this. And thank you, Mari, for taking care of the house so well and being the caretaker. We hope it continues. It's wonderful, and it's a great nomination.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Solomonson.
So the main thing I can say is that this house is exquisite in all of its details, and it was such a pleasure to read such a powerful argument for the significance of the house and the significance of its designer. I thank you for allowing me to spend some time with this beautiful total work of art, and I'm happy to see it go forward. And I will also add and comment about really fine nomination. Co-author Jane Hession just won a major award for a book on Liesl Close.
Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Olson.
I have a curious question. Did the Closes have a landscape architect son named Bob Close, perchance?
Indeed, they did, and they do. Yes,
Okay.
and
Okay.
they often worked with him.
Okay. Yeah, we had a successful project with Bob, and it seemed a little too coincidental if he wasn't connected to us. Thank you.
You are correct.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
It's his son, Bob Close.
Yeah, but he didn't do anything.
No.
I don't see any hands. Would you, oh, just want to be sure that everybody's muted if it's not speaking. Okay, so we will go ahead, if I don't see anybody's hands or any other comments with the motion. The motion before the board is to recommend that the Deputy State Historic Preservation Officer approve this nomination for listing in the National Register of Historic Places. And so we will vote by roll call. Just one second. Okay, here we go. All right. Board Member Gladhill.
Aye.
Board Member James.
Aye.
Thank you. Board Member Lavasser.
Aye.
Board Member Olson.
Aye.
Board Member Radford.
Aye.
Board Member Sanders.
Aye.
Board Member Schulke.
Aye.
Board Member Solomonson.
Aye.
Board Member Stark.
Aye.
Board Member Terrell.
Aye.
Board Member White.
Aye.
Board Member Worcester.
Aye.
And Chair votes aye. Thank you, everybody. And congratulations. All right.
Congratulations.
They just approved it. They just approved it. Okay.
I have to say, I'm ready to move into this house. It was so beautiful. It was so peaceful. Thank you for the beautiful photos. All right. All right, we'll move on to our next nomination this evening. Our second nomination is the Ole and Ann Foss House in Otter Tail County, presented by Ginny Way. Ginny, go ahead.
Thank you so much. I am sharing my screen now. All right. This is the Ole and Ann Foss House in Underwood, Otter Tail County. Shannon Story, New History, is the author. Just a note on this property, SHPO staff realized recently that the document posted to our website lacked the continuation sheets for this property. While the bulk of the nomination was present, historic photos and maps were not. Our apologies. The website was updated and a complete nomination packet was emailed to the board members prior to this meeting. The Ole and Ann Foss House is located at 301 Foss Street North at its intersection with Oak Avenue East. Constructed in 1869 by Ole and Lee Foss, the building is the only extant physical reminder of the earliest Norwegian immigrants to the area. The house was built roughly 12 years before the platting of the city of Underwood. At right is a map showing the location of the Foss House within the geographic boundaries of Underwood today. At left is the proposed boundary of the nomination. The Foss House sits on county-owned property while the surrounding lots have been subdivided for residential use. Norwegian settlements throughout the U.S. were plentiful by 1880, and many of the older communities were becoming overcrowded. Newcomers arrived at established settlements and stayed a short time before moving further west. This pattern was true of Ole and Ann. The Fosses initially arrived in Quebec and traveled to stay in Fillmore County in southern Minnesota, before moving west across the state to Otter Tail County. The Fosses settled specifically on the site of the current city of Underwood and would slowly sell their land to establish the city, as well as to the railroad. By selling portions of their land to early settlers and the rail companies, the Fosses played an important role in the European American settlement of Underwood. At left is an 1871 plat map of the township. The Fosses house is indicated with the red arrow. At right is a 1912 Atlas of Underwood with the part of Ole Foss's original homestead property highlighted. The Foss house is a rare example of a log house constructed in the Midland tradition with a single pin plan with an adjacent shed room. The Midland tradition log buildings can be categorized into two generations delineated by the time period of settlement as well as the level of sophistication of the carpentry. This 1.5-story house has walls of historic square-hewn logs, which differentiates it from the log cabins often seen in other parts of Minnesota. At left is the interior of the primary pin. At right is a view of a page from the Field Guide of American Houses by Virginia McAllister, indicating the different types of log construction we see in the United States. The house is entirely constructed of chinked hewn logs with dovetailed notches and features a sleeping loft, plank flooring, and shingled roof. The location of the shed at the side of the house instead of at the rear is unusual, as is the central placement of the chimney, which is more commonly placed on the side of the house. At left is a view of the south elevation, camera looking north. At right is a view of the east and south elevations, camera looking northwest. The Fosses' decision to erect a log house reflects its relative ease, sturdiness, and speed of the style of construction. Due to the abundance of available materials, the log house was a prevalent residential building type across the United States in the years before the railroad arrived. At left is a view of the north elevation, camera looking south. At right, a view of the west elevation, camera looking east. The house's entrance opens into the rectangular shed room, which historically functioned as a kitchen. The west wall of this space contains two interior doorways evenly spaced on either side of the centered brick chimney. Both doorways enter the main room of the house, which has a square plan and historically functioned as a bedroom. At left is a view of the main entry doorway at the south elevation, camera looking north. At center is a view of the shed room kitchen, camera looking northeast. At right is a view of another view of the shed room kitchen, camera looking northeast. At both rooms, floors are composed of replacement painted basswood planks, and walls are original exposed or painted square hewn logs with replacement chink. Interior window frames, doors, and door frames are replaced painted wood. Shed room kitchen ceiling boards are original exposed wood, while original ceiling boards and log beams in the bedroom are painted. At left is a view of the entryway to the main building's bedroom, camera looking west. At right is a view of the main building bedroom, camera looking southwest. At the northeast corner of the bedroom, a trapdoor is located at the floor. At one time, this led to the root cellar. Above the trapdoor is an opening into the ceiling that provides access to the loft above the bedroom. The loft's flooring is composed of historic wood planks, walls are composed of exposed logs, and the ceiling features original exposed beams and roof boards. At left is a view of the main building loft entry from below, camera looking northeast. At center is a view of the main building loft, camera looking southwest. At right is a view of a window at the south elevation, camera looking north. After Ole passed, Anne continued to live in the house until October of 1929, at which time it was sold to a neighbor. A lean-to was added in the 1930s, and at some point before 1977, a second chimney as well as painted wood board siding were added to the building. In 1977, the house was sold to the City of Underwood and to the Women's Study Club of Underwood. The building underwent restoration between 1977 and 1980. Restoration included repair of original materials and the removal of non-original features, as well as replacing deteriorated materials as necessary. At left is a view of looking north circa 1978 prior to the removal of the 1930s lean-to. At right are the west and south elevations looking northeast circa 1978 as well. The period of significance for this property is 1869 to 1881. The level of significance is local. The National Register criteria are A and C. The areas of significance are exploration and settlement and architecture. The period of significance corresponds with the house's date of original construction and arrival of the earliest Norwegian immigrants to the Underwood area. In 1869, immigrants to the Underwood area in 1869 and the formal platting of the village of Underwood, and ends with the formal platting of the village of Underwood in 1881. Constructed in 1869 by one of the first Norwegian immigrant families to Underwood, the building is a rare example of a log house constructed in the Midland tradition with a single shed plan with an adjacent shed room. And it is significantly associated with the settlement of Underwood. For these reasons, the Ole and Ann Foss House is eligible for listing in the National Register of Historic Places. There is no correspondence related to this nomination.
All right, thank you, Jenny.
You're welcome.
Okay, anyone from the public available to speak on behalf of this nomination? Anything from SHPO staff? I don't see anybody on the call. Great. So I'll close the public comment period for this nomination. And with that closed, in order for us to discuss, I'm wondering if the board has a motion regarding this nomination.
Well, I'll make that motion, Chair. This is Board Member Schulke. I don't have the exact terminology, but I make the motion that the Foss House be considered for nomination to the National Register of Historic Places.
This is Board Member Solomonson, and I'd like to second the motion.
Thank you. All right, so open comments, any discussion from the board?
Well, naturally, I would just like to, this is Board Member Schulke, to thank the City of Underwood and the Women's Study Club. The Women's Study Club are the ones that really kept the building in use through special events and through tours over the years. And when you're in a town that small, it's usually the same people that are relied upon over and over again to do this. And they did it with aplomb, and they did it without complaining. And they finally said, "We're getting too old. We need help. What's next on the? What can we do?" So I made the suggestion, National Register status, and here we are.
Thank you. Board Member Stark.
Yeah, I've been intrigued by log cabins and homes since a little kid. It's really nice to see this in its original location and not being delisted from the National Register as our next one. So that's a real plus in the case. It does need some maintenance. I can see in the windows in the photos. One of the things I recently became aware of, and I appreciate it being clarified to some extent into the nomination, is the joinery at the corners, that this was a dovetail joinery, which was more Scandinavian. And throughout the country, as the immigrants came through, there were various styles, and it changed quite a bit from areas. So you could kind of track by the types of log cabins from the coast to the central Minnesota or central areas. So that was nice that it was included.
Thank you. Board Member Radford.
Yeah, similar to Board Member Stark, I also just love seeing log buildings come forward. They weren't meant to last this long, so it's nice to see when they actually are lasting this long. I had just a couple questions, which maybe the authors will be able to answer. And then just one comment on the use of replacement versus non-historic versus non-original. They all kind of mean the same thing. And I thought maybe just some consistency there might be a little bit better, but otherwise I thought it was pretty well written. My questions are, is there, and maybe I missed it in a citation, but documentation of the wood being basswood or the floor, because that's such a soft wood. I have such a hard time believing that that would actually hold up to foot traffic. It's not usually a flooring material. And that's just that point might not even matter. I'm just curious more than anything. And then the windows, just curious if the sash and the muntins are historic. There was a lot of mention of the frames being replacement, but I was left to assume that the sash and muntins were historic. So just some clarification on that. But that's it.
Ginny, are you able to respond? Thank you.
I actually assumed the opposite that you did, because I assumed that if the frame was replaced, that the muntins and the sash were as well. So I think that if the authors are not on tonight, I can't see the participants list. We will certainly reach out, as well as the question of the basswood. I think that they may not know, and if they don't have a citation, then perhaps we'll use a more general wood. Thank you for your expertise in that.
There is a Bass Lake close by, so there you go.
Maybe it's
that's
made of
not
fishes.
why it's called that.
So, Board Member White, I see your message that you're having trouble with the link and muting. If you're able to chat, let us know in the chat if you have a question. We'll try and get you in there. So I believe it was Board Member Worcester, and then Board Member Stark, you still have your hand up. You'll be after Board Member Worcester if you do. Okay, go ahead, Mike.
Okay. So the city of Underwood owns the property, right?
Yes.
Okay, and they are committed to the long-term preservation and of the property or ownership of the property. They're not going to turn around and suddenly say, okay, well, we're going to sell it now and let somebody else maintain it. There's some stability there.
It seems to be.
Okay.
Yes. They were wholeheartedly, the city council seemed to be wholeheartedly behind this project.
Okay, that was going to be my next question. They did a resolution or whatever affirming, this.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
And just to confirm, Board Member Worcester, they were also notified of the listing process. So if they had objections, it would have been, they would have had an opportunity to let us know.
Mm-hmm.
So I see Lauren Anderson has hand raised. Do we know who that is?
She is also from New History. She may have, she may be able to answer some of Casey's questions.
Okay. Lauren, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Good evening. I did just want to jump in there and say that, yes, my colleague Shannon, who wrote the nomination, and myself are happy to check into the question of the window sash and muntins being historic, and also the basswood flooring to see if there was documentation on that specifically. And the comment on terminology is also appreciated. I think there was, in some cases, maybe difficulty dating exactly when a particular material or feature went in, when we knew it wasn't original, but I think the date was unknown. That was, I believe, our goal in using the word replacement versus historic when we can date it to that period of significance, or non-historic when it's clearly outside. But we'll definitely double check on that as well, just to make sure everything's consistent.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren.
Any other comments from the board? Yeah, Board Member Gladhill.
Just to kind of reiterate on that, I think I appreciated Board Member Radford's comment. I got a little bit lost in what was replacement and what was original. So I think some standardization of that would really help. It's very well done. The work on it has been very well done, and it definitely preserves the character and the integrity of it. But I do get a little bit concerned about the replacement elements, so we can see what's what, especially if it's in municipal hands like that and has a lot of passage through it and so on and so forth.
Board
you.
member Gladhill, this is Jenny, I will work with Shannon and Lauren to make sure that's a little clearer in the documentation, understanding that if we discover anything new, we'll let you know. But I think it's just going to be some reordering of some sentences.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? All right, seeing none. So our motion, the motion before the board is to recommend that the Deputy State Historic Preservation Officer approve the nomination for listing in the National Register of Historic Places. So I will go ahead and vote by roll call, starting with Board Member Gladhill.
Aye.
Thank you. Board Member James.
Aye.
Board Member Lavasser.
Aye.
Board Member Olson.
Aye.
Member Radford.
Aye.
Board Member Sanders.
Aye.
Board Member Schulke.
Aye.
Board Member Solomonson.
Aye.
Thank you. Board Member Stark.
Aye.
Board Member Terrell.
Aye.
Board Member White, I see your vote is aye. Thank you. And Board Member Worcester.
Aye.
Thank you. And Chair votes aye. Thank you, everybody. So now we're moving on to the second portion of this evening, which is the two properties that we have for a recommendation for removal. So our first recommendation for removal is the District Number 13 school in Big Stone County. And this item is presented by Ginny Way. Ginny, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. All right, this is District Number 13 School, Artichoke Township, Big Stone County. The author is Emily Ginzel with support from SHPO staff. According to Title 36 of the Code of Federal Regulations, Section 60.15A1, a property is removed from the National Register of Historic Places when, quote, the property has ceased to meet the criteria for listing in the National Register because the qualities which caused it to be originally listed have been lost or destroyed, end quote. In addition, the property was moved without the notification and review procedures required by the National Park Service prior to the move, in keeping with 36 CFR 60.14B4. Built in 1898, District Number 13 School stood out as quote, one of Minnesota's most unusual rural schools and the only octagonal school known to be standing in the state, end quote. Having held its last class in 1955, the building served as the town hall for Artichoke Township when it was nominated to the National Register in 1985. The building was moved to the Big Stone County Museum in 2007. While many of the historic materials remain intact, the property's location, setting, feeling, and association with education were lost when the building was moved from the rural road in Artichoke Township to the grounds of the Big Stone County Museum. Because the property's overall has lost the historic qualities that made it eligible for listing, the property must be removed from the National Register. We have no correspondence on this property. At left, you can see the property from the property as it was at listing in 1984, and at right, you can see it in its current location.
Thank you, Jenny.
You're welcome.
All right, anybody from the public to speak on? Do we have members of the public speak on these two? I believe.
Yes, we do.
Oh, okay. And is there anybody who is prepared to speak? I don't see anyone on the call. John or SHPO staff, anybody that you know of?
No, we don't have any additional requests to speak on this.
Okay. So in order to move forward, and discuss as a board, do we have a motion regarding this nomination?
I would like to make a motion to recommend that the Deputy State Historic Preservation Officer accept the removal of this property from the National Register of Historic Places.
Thank you, Board Member James. Do we have a second?
Board Member Sanders will second the motion.
Thank you. Any discussion from the board? Board Member Gladhill.
Just a quick question. Are all of the properties in this collection, are any of them remaining on the National Register after this gets removed? This little zoo of historic properties?
The nomination and therefore the discussion this evening is focused on the District Number 13 school specifically. I have not done
Okay.
research or context related to the rest of the buildings on the property.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Yes, Board Member Olson.
So the integrity element is the setting and location of the 7 elements that is violated or diminished with the move to this location. As someone who's moved bridges that have retained their integrity to a certain extent when they've hit a new location, I'm just curious as to what the line is for, or the thinking is for how many integrity elements can be diminished before we, and I see you smiling at me, Jenny, so I know I hit a nerve here, so.
No, not nerves. Excited to have conversations about the depth of this program. Never nerves, Steve. You always have great questions. So that line is not arbitrary, but certainly something that we struggle with at every intention. In this particular case, we are talking about a building that was in a rural space that is now in a more populated space. It is not in its original location, and it is not serving the population that it originally served, which is setting, feeling, and association as well as location. Now, in addition to this, we have documentation from my predecessor, Susan, who used to sit in this desk, that this property has lost its integrity under criterion A with regard to education, and that the most important, that it was moved without prior permission. Okay. So the regulations actually say that it's moved, it is automatically delisted. Now we can all tell that the automatic in that takes roughly 10 to 15 years, depending on how busy we are. But that is what is happening now. We're following through on that automatic. Should the county be interested in relisting the property in its current location for its architecture, I would encourage that discussion.
Okay.
It is still an octagonal school.
Okay.
However, we're at this point procedurally, and we have regulations.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Right, I don't see any hands. So the motion before the board is to recommend that the Deputy State Historic Preservation Officer accept the removal of this property from the National Register of Historic Places. I'll be calling your name for roll call. In response to this motion. Thank you. All right, Board Member Gladhill.
Aye.
Board Member James.
Aye.
Board Member Lavasser.
Aye.
Board Member Olson.
Aye.
Board Member Radford.
Aye.
Board Member Sanders.
Aye.
Board Member Schulke.
Aye.
Board Member Solomonson,
Aye.
Board Member Stark,
Aye.
Board Member Terrell,
Aye.
Board Member White, Board Member White votes aye. Thank you in the chat. And Board Member Worcester.
Aye.
All right, Chair votes aye and motion passes. Thank you. All right, the second property to be recommended for removal this evening is the Good Templars Hall in Dakota County. This item is presented by Ginny Way. Take it away.
Thank you, Chair. Right, I am sharing my screen now. Right, as Chair Rulon Miller said, this is the Good Templar Hall in Nininger, Dakota County. The author is Emily Gansell with support from SHPO staff. According to Title 36 of the Code of Federal Regulations, Section 60.15A1, a property is removed from the National Register of Historic Places when, quote, the property has ceased to meet the criteria for listing in the National Register because the qualities which caused it to be originally listed have been lost or destroyed, end quote. Additionally, this property was moved without the notification and review procedures required by the National Park Service prior to the move. When it was nominated to the National Register of Historic Places in 1979, the Good Templars Hall was the only remaining of the Greek Revival-style buildings constructed during the Nininger's boom period, which occurred between 1856 and 1958. I'm going to guess that's 1858. In 2005, when Nininger Township decided to replace the building with a new town hall, the Good Templars Hall was purchased by Stephen and Sylvia Bauer and moved to their Little Log House Pioneer Village in Martian Township. While many of the historic materials remain intact, integrity of location, feeling, and setting were lost when the structure was moved from a quiet rural road to a location surrounded by other buildings and away from public accessibility. Moreover, the building's association with the speculative town of Nininger was lost when the property was moved from its original site. Because it has lost the historic qualities that made it eligible for listing, the property must be removed from the National Register. On the right, you see the property at the time of listing in 1979, and at left, you see a property, a photograph of the Little Log Pioneer Village that I was able to get off of Google. The Good Templars Hall is in the blue box. We have no correspondence related to this property.
Thank you, Jenny.
You're welcome.
Any members of the public who wish to speak on behalf of this property? I don't see any. John? All right. So I take it there is no public members ready to speak. I will close the public comment period, open it up for the board, and if I would like to ask for a motion in order to discuss this property, please.
Madam
Board
Chair,
Member Stark.
Oh. Okay, I'll jump in. I'd like to make a motion to recommend the Deputy State Historic Preservation Officer accepts the removal of this property from the National Register of Historic Places.
Wonderful, thank you. Is there a second?
Board Member Gladhill seconds.
Thank you. Any discussion from the board? Board Member Stark, do you still have your hand up? No, maybe not. Any comments, questions? I don't see any hands. Oh, there's one. Board Member Worcester.
It's more of a general question. When these properties get moved, the structures, physical structures get moved, are people just not realizing that this puts the listing in jeopardy? Because I know that I've seen this happen, not the first time I've seen this happen. And I think some folks just think, oh, well, we have to move it because XYZ, no problem. Do they just simply not check with you folks first to just at least talk this through?
We do get some inquiries about what it would mean to move the property, and Lillian and I answer that question fairly often, but my guess is in these cases, either they did not reach out or they chose to accept the consequences.
Okay.
I have no correspondence of either of those in the information in our office.
Any other comments, questions? All right. Seeing no hands, the motion before the board is to recommend that the Deputy State Historic Preservation Officer accept the removal of this property from the National Register of Historic Places. We will vote by roll call, starting with Board Member Gladhill.
Aye.
Board Member James.
Aye.
Board Member Lavasser.
Aye.
Board Member Olson.
Aye.
Board Member Radford.
Aye.
Board Member Sanders.
Aye.
Board Member Schilke.
Aye.
Thank you. Board Member Solomonson.
Aye.
Board Member Stark.
Aye.
Board Member Terrell.
Aye.
Board Member White, and Frank says aye in the chat. Thank you. And Board Member Worcester.
Aye.
Thank you. Chair votes aye, and the motion passes. Thank you, everybody. So this concludes the presentation of nominations for the evening. And I would ask SHPO staff, is there anything else that you would like to share before we adjourn?
This is this is Amy Spong, Deputy SHPO. This might complicate things a little bit more, but there is Minnesota environmental review law that does say that if a National Register listed property is being proposed to be demolished in whole or in part or moved, that an environmental assessment worksheet is required to be completed. This is not a SHPO administered program. We do comment on these worksheets when they come to our office. We don't always get them. Smaller communities don't always know about the state statute, so they don't always get completed. So just a little bit more information on Minnesota environmental review laws. One of these days, I have a dream of having an environmental AMIRA session at one of our annual preservation conferences. So if anyone is interested in that, I've had some thoughts and ideas for a long time, and I think it's a great education piece and sorely needed.
Board Member Worcester, did you have a question for Amy?
I do, and I really don't want, I regret that I'm not sure if this is the right forum to bring this up, and I really don't want this to turn into a long-winded discussion, but I'm just curious, background, we're looking at a property here that we would like to consider for listing, and we are being told by our insurance carrier, if we do that, they will drop us.
This is a national problem.
Yeah, that's what I found in our research.
I have a letter for you. It's also available in the frequently asked questions. We recently posted it on our website, but I would be happy to, if you'll email me, I will be happy to send you a letter from SHPO that says there's no requirement to replace in kind when an act of God has destroyed or otherwise damaged a property.
Yeah, I should send you the email I got from our carrier, not our agent, but their underwriter about this. It was really fascinating to read it. So, okay, I will do that, Jenny. Thank you.
I would be interested in that. And yes, the National Trust for Historic Preservation also has additional information related to this particular issue on their website. I will include that.
Yep, I did get that. I watched the video from the conference too. So,
oh, good. Sure, perfect.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you. SHPO staff, any other comments for tonight or announcements? Okay, thank you. Anything else from the board? If not, we'll have a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved, Chairman or Board Member Schulke, so moved.
Thank you. And this concludes the evening. Good night. Thank you.
But happy Thanksgiving, everyone.